All right, let's get right into it. The title for this one is pretty bold. I replaced my entire tech stack with Postgres. Now that's a huge claim, right? But it gets at this really cool idea. What if you could just dramatically simplify everything you do by really leaning into one powerful open source tool?
And it all starts with this feeling. This quote, modern web development sucks. And look, I get it. That's a strong take. But it really hits on a feeling so many of us developers have had, right? You just want to build something cool. And the next thing you know, you're drowning in a sea of different tools, different services, all with their own monthly subscription.
The person behind this idea has a great name for it: shovel proliferation. Think about it. For every little job you need to do, there's some new, specialized, super fancy, and usually paid shovel that somebody's trying to sell you. You need a cache? That's a shovel. A service to run scheduled jobs? Another shovel. Auth, analytics, you know the drill. The list goes on and on.
And this slide just lays it all out perfectly. On the left, you've got your typical modern tech stack, a whole laundry list of services, right? Cron service, Redis for cache, some auth service, analytics, and then on the right, just Postgres. So the big question is, how on earth is it possible for one database to do the job of all that?
Well, the answer, the whole key to this, is to stop thinking about Postgres as just a dumb box where you store your data. You have to start seeing it as a real, honest-to-goodness application platform. And it's got a secret weapon, a feature that honestly most people just don't know about.
And that secret weapon is extensibility. See, a lot of other databases are kind of like these sealed black boxes. You get what you get. But Postgres, it was built from the ground up to be tinkered with, to be added to. The best way to think about it is like it's an operating system with its own app store. You can just go and install these extensions that give it all kinds of new superpowers.
I absolutely love this analogy from the source. It's just like modding a game. And it's so true. Think of regular out-of-the-box Postgres as this amazing game engine, like Unreal or Unity. And then the entire developer community comes along and builds these incredible mods, the extensions. They can add anything you can imagine, completely transforming the game into exactly what you want it to be.
Okay, so let's see what this modded database can actually do. Let's go through some of those common shovels that developers are paying for every single month and see how Postgres stacks up.
First up, the classic problem. You need to work with unstructured data. This is the whole reason NoSQL databases even exist, right? The big sales pitch is that you can just dump messy JSON-style data in there. You can't do that with a super rigid old-school SQL database, or can you?
Well, surprise! Postgres has a built-in data type called JSONB. The B stands for binary, which just means it's a super efficient way to store JSON. You can literally just dump raw JSON into your table, right next to all your normal structured data. And the killer feature is you can actually query inside that JSON and even create indexes on it for speed. And get this isn't even an extension. It's just part of core Postgres.
All right, next shovel. You need to run scheduled jobs. Maybe you need to send out a daily report or clean up old records every night at 2 a.m. The usual way to do this is to spin up a server just to run a cron job or, you guessed it, pay for yet another cloud service.
Or you could just install an extension called PG-cron. It's such a simple, brilliant idea. It's a job scheduler that runs inside the database. Your schedule lives right there with your data. You just write a standard cron schedule and tell it what SQL to run. And boom, no extra server, no extra bill.
Okay, what about a fast in-memory cache? We all know that for a really high-traffic website, you can't just hit the database for everything. You need a cache, something like Redis or Memcached, to keep things snappy. And yeah, that's another server and another service to pay for and manage.
So check this out. Postgres has this amazing trick up its sleeve for what the source calls a poor man's Redis. Here's how it works. You create something called an unlogged table. Now, normally, Postgres is super careful about your data, writing everything down in a safety log in case it crashes. That's great, but it slows things down. By making a table unlogged, you're telling Postgres, hey, for this table, don't worry about that safety log, go fast as you can. Since cache data isn't critical, you can always rebuild it, this is perfect. It gives you a huge speed boost for writes. Keep that table in RAM, and you've basically built yourself a super fast cache right inside Postgres.
Okay, let's jump to something that's on everyone's mind right now, AI. If you're building an AI app, especially with RAG, you're going to need a vector database. A place to store all those embeddings so you can do similarity searches. And wow, this is a hot market right now, with new, fancy, specialized vector databases popping up every week.
And you probably saw this coming. Of course, there's a Postgres extension for that. It's called PG Vector, and it is an absolute game changer. It literally just adds a new vector data type to your database. That means you can store your AI embeddings right there in the same table as your user data or your product data. This is huge because you don't have to deal with the nightmare of keeping your main database and your separate vector database in sync.
All right, here's another really expensive shovel: full text search. If you want that nice Google-style search box on your app, something fast that understands what you mean and can handle typos, you're usually looking at paying a fortune for a service like Algolia or getting lost in the complexity of setting up something like Elasticsearch. But once again, Postgres has you covered, and this is built right in. It has this incredibly powerful full-text search engine. It uses special data types like TS-vector that are designed to break down your text into searchable chunks. You can then create an index on that for lightning-fast queries, and it can even rank the results by how relevant they are. Honestly, for a huge number of apps, this is all the search you'll ever need.
So let's take a step back. We've just seen how Postgres can act as a job scheduler, a cache, a vector database, and a search engine. That's already insane. But the real magic happens when you start putting these pieces together. So let's look at a really core feature of any app: user authentication. Let's see if we can build a whole thing using nothing but Postgres.
Okay, this is just wild. The entire auth system, from start to finish, can live inside the database. First, you use an extension like pgcrypto to hash user passwords safely. Then, when they log in, you can use another extension, pjnjwt, to create one of those secure session tokens. And then, and this is the best part, you use Postgres' built-in row-level security to set rules like a user can only see rows in the invoices table that belong to them. It's incredibly powerful.
Okay, but wait, this is all great logic locked away in the database. How does my front-end app, my Reactor View app, actually talk to it? I still have to go and write a whole back-end API to expose all this stuff, right? Well, not necessarily.
There's this incredible open-source tool called Postgres. You just point it at your Postgres database, and it instantly creates a secure, full-featured REST API for you, just like that. You have a table called horses. Well, now you have an API endpoint called /horses that returns a JSON array of all your horses. You don't have to write a single line of back-end code. It's just amazing. Okay, now before you get too excited and go cancel all your cloud subscriptions, we need to pump the brakes for a second. We gotta have a little reality check here, because while this is all super powerful, it is definitely not a silver bullet.
And this is probably the most important thing to remember from this whole discussion. Just because you can do something in Postgres doesn't mean you should. There's a reason dedicated tools like Elasticsearch and Redis exist. They are often way more feature-rich, they're built to scale to absolutely massive levels, and sometimes they're just plain easier to manage. The point isn't that Postgres is always the answer. The point is to be smart and choose the right tool for the job you're actually doing.
But what I hope this leaves you with is a new way of thinking. It's about challenging that default reflex to immediately reach for another paid service every time you have a new problem. So the next time you're looking at your own tech stack, I want you to ask yourself this question: which one of these fancy shovels could I maybe, just maybe, throw away and replace with the good old superpowered Postgres?